Welcome to Group Talk. 4 shows, 1 podcast from the Small Group Network focusing on topics relevant to small group ministries. Whether you're in a church of 100 or 10,000, whether you're a volunteer or staff, we want to support, encourage, and equip you to lead well. So relax, listen, and enjoy Inside Saddleback with Steve Glayton.
Hello everyone, Derek here along with your favorite host, the man, the myth, the legend, Steve Glayton.
Wow, you are just beautiful to have around as a friend. It's just crazy. It's good to be with you. Back to a little bit of our normal routine.
Yeah. Steve, how much fun did you have on Group Talk United last week with Carolyn, Bill, Nick? We even had Jason, our producer.
Yeah, no, I am so excited. The podcast is really fulfilling part of the vision that I had of being able to say we're now in a weekly rhythm that is going to help you kind of understand some what's going on at Saddleback and learnings you can get from there. We'll break down the show back to what it originally was pre-COVID. Then we're going to get the nuggets with Carolyn on how to move from here to there. You have Nick talking about through the reading lens. You have Bill with the leadership piece. I mean, you listen each week, and I can guarantee you're going to get some nuggets out of there that's going to help you in your small group ministry.
This is going to be a one-stop shop for you. We're getting you everything you need: breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, right?
Yeah, and the midnight snack. I mean, what's it like without the midnight snack? Got to have that, man. Bring those calories on in ministry.
So how was your weekend? My weekend, I was in the Northwest over the weekend.
Hey, just pulling right into the theme too, because we're talking about navigation, and so okay, so you were up in Seattle, if I remember right. So tell me, planes, trains, automobiles, how'd you get there?
It was crazy. I flew up there with my mask on in the airport, on the airplane, but had a great time with family. That's where I'm originally from. So go Pacific Northwest. It was amazing. My wife and I went down and saw Snoqualmie Falls, which is from the movie Twin Peaks, or the show, if you haven't ever seen that. Amazing.
Yeah, I didn't watch R-rated shows, so I'm sorry.
But it was a great time. Did some hiking. Went on a road trip with Dad. My parents actually listened to this show, so shout out to Mom and Dad. Love you.
Oh, Mom and Dad, send more money. He is just, he's thinning out, baby. He needs money. He needs money. So it kind of ties into the theme of the show, because we're in each one of our 4 parts of this show where the theme is navigation. And I mean, I'm sure you appreciated that your pilot had a navigation system that took you from Orange County into the Seattle area.
Yes, God.
Yes, God. And, and just with everything in life and in church life, and as we're thinking through all the things that are going on, there is the aspect of, how do we navigate this? How do we pull this around? So excited for this theme and how we're going to go with it.
Right. So, Steve, now that we're getting back into our show post-COVID, you said we've got these 4 pieces of the show.
Yeah, and I don't know for post-COVID, but we're bringing these 4 parts as we're going into our weekly episodes.
So give us remind listeners of our 4 pieces, and then we'll jump into the first one.
Yeah, so we're going to give you a little bit from the Saddleback scoop, kind of what's going on here behind the scenes. That's why it's called Inside Saddleback, the show. Then we're going to look about a little bit of the network nugget. Then we're going to go into a leadership learning, and then to a trending topic. We'll spend a little bit more of our time kind of, going through that. But that's kind of the overview of where we're going to go.
So we've got the Saddleback scoop right out of the gate. This is like a big scoop of double chocolate ice cream. Let's jump right in. Steve, what do you got for us?
Dude, for a diabetic, you're talking way too much about sugar and ice cream, man.
Stevia.
Did you? Oh, stevia. I like that. Here we go. No, but yeah, I'm sure like every other church, as you're trying to navigate, you're thinking through so many things, whether it's through pandemics or protests or politics, or if you want some V words, the virus, violence, and vengeance. We're all trying to figure this out. How do we navigate through this trifecta of a mess of 2020 and how it's been ebbing and flowing between all these things? And on the Saddleback side, the big question that's in front of every church around the planet, our Hong Kong campus is now out of as they're going post-COVID, they're looking more. Their services are about up to 50%. Just baptized 41 at the Ocean. They had 80 first-time people that didn't know Saddleback. They've only known Saddleback through our online services. Hadn't been to a physical one. So there's a lot of excitement that's going there. But as you're thinking through the re-entry aspect about where your church is at, I think sometimes what we're noticing is you can be focusing sometimes on the right question, but it can be the wrong question. And the question is like, when are we starting back? When are we starting back? And part of that is, much like on the church level, the church never stopped. It took a new form. Groups never stopped. They took a new form. But where I would challenge you as we're working through is, just assessing what's the right question. And that is a part of it. When is physical and how that's going to happen. I'm going to frame that through. But at Saddleback, we work through 6 concentric circles. We have the community that kind of deals on, this is all in, paired to our small group ministry, but you have the community, which is just the total unconnected population that you're striving for. You have the crowd, that those that are in your database that may not be connected into a group. You have the congregation, and those are the ones that are, taking that step, and they're inside your group and they're taking baby steps towards some responsibilities. You have your committed that are, those that are, the next wave that are going to be happening in your leadership. That's the pipeline. You have the core, and those are the tip of the spear that are leading your small groups. And you have the commissioned, which is your CLs and your C team. And when you look at these 6 concentric circles, I'd frame them up in these 3 categories, and they go by 2s. For the community and the crowd, you're asking the question, what's ahead? That's the vision casting piece. We talked about that in re-entering COVID. I'll come back to each one of the circles in some examples. But then you're also looking at the congregation and the committed, and that's the who's next. And this is, the buzzword is pipeline, and that is who is in your pipeline that is going to be raised to that next level somewhere in your church, maybe in the small group ministry and maybe someplace else. And then you look at the core and the commission, and that's where you're headed. That's the granular piece of where you're going. So, as most of us are asking the question, okay, how do I re-enter my groups? Let me take you into each one of these circles and just where we're at with Saddleback and wrestling. So on the community side, we're talking about, we're helping people with food distribution, because the felt need of the community is there's hopelessness, there's unrest, there's questioning, there's just, all kinds of chaos that's out there. But one of the felt needs is, serving people. And in our food distribution, we also serve people through not only the physical part of food, but we're also ministering to them by being willing to pray with them. And just since this has all started in COVID, we've had over 6,000 people in the field accept Christ. And it's not like, hey, you don't get your food unless you accept Christ, but these are people, they have the option to stop at another place just for prayer.
Yeah, it was such an honor to be able to go out to one of our pop-up food distributions 2 weeks ago, where Saddleback Church partnered with the city of Anaheim. And it was just like, there was thousands of people that we served. It was so incredible to see people driving up, getting their trunks literally packed full of food, enough to feed a full family. And then they had, milk, bread, proteins. But the coolest part was when they're leaving, the army of Saddleback volunteers that were trained to just thank them and pray with them. And there were over 500 salvations that one day. In about 5 hours, I got to lead at least 6 people to Christ. It was one of the coolest things I've done.
It was a shabby day for you.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about groups, so often we don't mobilize them for the things that are low-hanging fruit. And part of what we're trying to do is in our small group ministry, say in the community, whenever we mobilize a small group to do something outside of Bible study, the retention of that group climbs anywhere from 12 to 16 points. And so that's the question we're asking there. And I just was at one of our warehouses that we're getting ready to rent, and just figuring out, okay, how do we get community leaders and groups mobilized to do the back end? My group, Derek's group, was on the front lines. We were more the back lines. My group last Friday, we made 643 boxes of the dry produce that goes out, and with that. But not to get complicated in there, but that's just one thing. In the crowd circle, one of the things we're looking at is Saddleback at Home. How do we get our groups to bring their neighborhoods to watch church with them? It's not their small group. So that's on, what's the head, the vision casting without there. On the who's next, we're focused highly on the pipeline. I mean, we're excited about groups maybe physically getting together, but we're looking at who's next. And with our congregation step, we're trying to think, okay, how do we get those electronic tools fired back up that we needed so desperately, and may be going into an app form with our health assessment and our group assessment. Also on the who's next, it's just very simply, you're trying to help your leaders focus. If you got hit by a bus, or if you got hit by COVID, I mean, let's bring it up. We have some people in our congregation that are struggling with COVID right now who I'm praying they make it, may not. But the point is that if you're not here because you get transferred or because you leave or something like that, who's next behind you in the pipeline that's going to be there? And that's part of the who's next in those. And then we get more into where the chatter is right now with the core, and that's where you're headed. That is, you got to have guidelines as you re-enter. But so often we're so focused on that part of the circles, concentric circles, that we're missing the other ones. And what we're focused on with our team, we've been heads down since even pre-COVID, and that was, we got to build the infrastructure. And when you're talking to your CL teams and your C teams at every one of the campuses, it's all about building the infrastructure to support the growth that God's going to bring. So just in the Saddleback Scoop moment, the thing I'm just trying to put in front of you is, you got a good question out there. How are you re-entering? But I think we're so hyper-focused on how to re-enter, we're missing 5 other questions that should be front and center with us as we go through COVID, because your groups never stopped meeting. They may have stopped meeting physically, but the development of all 6 concentric circles needs to be front and center with you.
So that is your Saddleback Scoop, and I would say that was a pretty large scoop. That was great.
You said double. You did say double. I may have gone triple, but it's we're only on once a month now.
That was prophetic.
Yeah.
On to our network nugget, and this is, by the way, a big old herking gold nugget that we're going to share with you today. Steve, we just launched our first ever small group network online training course called Align, and you were quoted as saying, "This is the course I wish I would have had 35 years ago when I started small groups ministry." Please unpack that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it is a nuclear network nugget. I tell you, it is our first small group network course that we're hoping to have more down the line. We've already got 4, 5, 7 that are in the pipeline for you that we're excited about. But part of this is what Derek says, this is the first one, and it's like, why these courses, and why do we need them? And part of it, what I noticed was, why I wish I would have had this so much is because most small group ministries lack direction in their strategy, their systems, and their structure. And part of what we're trying to do is unveil something that is universally across any church anywhere on the planet for you to learn from, because you've got to wrestle down these things that are facing your small group ministry. And I can guarantee you that how you strategy and how you go towards small groups, how you develop your system, and how you develop your structure are going to be universal across every church. And that's why I'm excited about this, because it wouldn't have mattered where I would have landed. These 8 sessions would have been critical. So that's the why that you need it. The what is, you got to have 8 sessions. And so at least I feel you had to unpack all the different aspects of what were needed to kind of give you the essentials in your small group ministry. And we've made it available online. We wanted to have it synchronistically there so you could download your workbook. You could download. I got an email from one church that was telling me that all their small group point people, they're going to sign up to go through this. And there's questions at the end of each one of the sessions so that you can, work it through. So, I mean, this this course is just one of many that are going to be out there already in the hopper. We have one for kids small groups and student small groups and online small groups. We have another version of taking, this course of the line a little bit deeper. So there's many things that are happening, but the point is that all leaders are learners, and we want you to be able, as a small group point person, keeping your tools sharp. Ecclesiastes 10:10 talks about how a dull axe requires more strength for you to chop down the tree. And what we're trying to help you do is work smarter, not harder, and develop this through the courses.
And so if you are interested in Align, go to smallgroupnetwork.com/Align. You can read more about it. You can watch the free introduction session, which is about 6 minutes. And then you can purchase it if you want, tell others about it. We also want to give you a special code.
Ooh, special. What does special do for them?
Special gets you 20% off.
Ooh, nicely done.
A single course. So use code SHOW20.
SHOW20. The numerical.
Exactly. All lowercase, SHOW20. Once you click checkout, you'll see a coupon area or a code area where you can add that code in, and it'll take 20% off for a single purchase.
Beautiful.
So that was, this is an amazing show. That's a huge Saddleback scoop, an amazing network nugget. And now we're on to our leadership learning. Steve, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so keeping on that same theme of navigation, and I think this will pull together nicely with what we're talking about, is, in navigation, you're trying to help people move with you, not against you. And we wish navigation was simple. As we're talking about the 6 concentric circles, as we're talking about the courses, it's all about learning the skills to navigate. In the same way, in this learning, leadership learning, something valuable I've learned from Rick over and over again is just a 2-part phase, because and you can see it pragmatically played out if you go back to June 27, 28. We'll put it in the show notes for you. A link to that weekend message, because Rick was noticing that everybody was anxious and about when is the church going to restart? What are we going to do about the protest? How are we going to engage with all these different things that were front and center with us? And this leadership learning, although it's somewhat 2-part, it is very critical for you as a small group point person to learn, because what's needed to navigate people, to help people move with you and against you, is there's 2 parts. And the first part is you always have to explain here's why. Here's why this is so important. And I love how Rick, even you can look at his message notes and how he even sets this up, because the feeling was anxiousness. People were impatient. They're tired of being set in COVID. They're frustrated with the protest and everything that has mixed in with it. And so the first thing he has to share, and he was sharing with the congregation, and as you are navigating different aspects of rolling in how you're going to navigate your small group ministry, you've got to answer the question, here's why. Because you may know why, but if you can't articulate and you can't bring them along both biblically and practically about the here's why they need it, then you're done before you even start off with. It's like taking a road trip and wanting to put the navigation in, but you don't even know why you're even in the car. And so it's a frustrating piece. So the first part is here's why. The second aspect of that is you've got to teach your way through change. And when you're teaching your way through change, you've got to help answer the what question and the how question. What is this stirring up? Here's the why. This is what is before us. This is what we have to deal with. And then you've got to go to the second half of that, and that is how. Everyone wants to know how you're going to do it. And it's important for you as you're talking to your small group leadership, as you're talking with your church leadership, is that as you're making everything from proposing to budget for your small group ministry to executing a goal that you have out there, you've got to understand, you got to be able to tell people, here's why this is so important. Here's why we need this. And that's a little bit is that vision. And then you go down to the what in the how aspects of it so they can understand what they're dealing with and they can understand how they've got to challenge and go with this, which is why I'm excited about the trending topic, because the how is so evasive in the navigation of what our trending topic is.
And so on to our trending topic. We shared earlier that today our trending topic is navigating pandemics, protests, and politics, the 3 Ps. And Steve, I mean, there's still so much craziness going on in the world right now. In fact, last week we sent out a special newsletter to our small group network regarding small groups and racism. So make sure you check your inbox for that newsletter. It had a couple key podcasts and resources in there for you to tackle this issue with your small groups. And by the way, if you're not subscribed to our newsletter, you can go to smallgroupnetwork.com and you'll see right there on the front page, just scroll down a little bit, an area to subscribe and sign up so that you get that directly into your inbox. So there's so much going on. Steve, why is this our trending topic today? Well,
I mean, I'm going to focus a little bit more on the racism issue, and because sometimes that how is so elusive to us, and we're trying to figure out how do we make a difference. Derek and I are both Caucasian. We've had a great interaction with a lot of our African American staff, and just working out different things, but so much of what we're going through with this and how we're talking about racism, it's going to be important that I think it's very applicable to whether you're talking about the pandemic, whether you're talking about protest, whether as we push into the latter part of 2020 and we move into a deeper mayhem of political vomiting all over the place. How are we going to deal with this and how are we going to navigate through it? So part of this is, even from my own side of it, is you're moving from, not just I'm not racist. We've been, both my wife and I have been always had a broad cultural diversity inside of our friends and with people we've hung out with that. But you got to move from the non-racist to almost being anti-racist. And I said almost, but I mean totally anti-racist. And part of this, when you're navigating, you don't want to step away. You want to step into this issue no matter how messy it is. And in the show notes, this is an interview. It's about 8 minutes. It's Brian Lourdes is interviewing Darren Whitehead, and this is probably one of the most astute interviews. Brilliant on Brian's side. He just pitched the question and let Darren answer the question, but I think it is so applicable as we're talking about navigating. And this was talking about racism, but Darren was talking about, and this is just one of so many nuggets in this 8-minute interview that was just, I'm really just urging you to watch it because it's something that's going to help you have tools in your tool belt to not only become anti-racist, but also being able to help navigate the pandemic and the political front that is looming large that's before us. But one of the things Darren talked about is from a professor at Biola. And what he was talking about there is in the 5 levels of communication. And the first level is just cliche. It's, hi, how are you, Derek? Hi, how are you? And we were just doing that prior to the show and just catching up with each other as we don't see each other too often, with what's going on. The second and third are a little bit more where most men hang out. And it's the facts. It's the sports center. Who's the best college team in the land?
Washington.
And Derek wants to talk about Washington, but no one knows Washington who, with that. Whereas we do know it is the Ohio State Buckeyes. But
they like to pay their players.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Let's just move on. But it's the fact center, and then there's the opinion. The third level is the third opinion, which is, just sharing what you think. Well, this is what I'm thinking about, and this is how, I'm going to it. And like I said, this is where most men hang out. They don't get into step 4 and 5. And step 4 is the fourth level is the emotive. And this is how I feel. And steps 4 and 5 are the deepest level of, sharing with yourself. They are not fact related. They are, this is how I am feeling. And I love how Darren talks about in the Psalms, this is where most of the Psalms were writing from. There's sometimes not fact involved in there, but it's just, this is the feeling with it. And then the fifth level is transparency. And this is just who I am. And there's only, a select chunk of people. And this is what I love about small groups is that, you get all 5 of these levels that are forming in your small group. Because when you talk about fellowship in your small group, you want them to get to level 4 and 5 in that matter. And the correlation he was bringing on is just saying, when somebody who may be African American comes in and talks, and they're at level 4 with what's been happening in our country, especially with George Floyd and his murder. But you have that level that is right there. And then if you go, well, let's get all the facts, and there's nothing wrong with getting all the facts, but you're totally missing at the level they are at. And this is where they are just grieving, and this is where they're hurting. And part of it is, if you think in marriage, if Lisa comes to me and she's talking at a level 4 and I'm engaging her at a level 2, it's just going to be ugly, and it's not ugly for her. It's going to be ugly for me. And so
really ugly.
Yeah, really ugly. And so when you look at what God gave us, when he gave us the family unit, the country that we live in, and then, the church, the thing that I'm just, focusing in on with this is as you're navigating your family, understand what level they're at and how do you move them to it. I can see this with my daughter. Sometimes she'll approach me and she's at a level 4. And what does Dad do? Dad goes, I'm going to problem solve this issue. She's not asking me to problem solve it. She's asking me just to, engage with her and hear her and be emotive with her. And the same thing on the church side of it. A number of weeks ago on the show, we challenged you to get to know somebody not like you. Not like you. And so whatever race you are, find somebody not like you in the place that you live in so that you can start to get to know them and see with their heart. Because we're going to be anti-racist, you've got to know each other. Because if you have the officer in charge and George Floyd, and they were both in a small group together, and they were at level 4 and 5, we're going to see some healing happen before destruction is out there. So 4 steps just to give you that can come out of this. And one of it is when you are navigating, when you're listening to people, as you're trying to go anti-racist, not non-anti-racist, that was like a double negative. Derek, help me with this. You're the producer, my sidekick.
Anti-racist.
Thank you, anti-racist. You want to just follow this. First is listen, and just listen intently. And one of the things in group language you say is listen with your eyes. Stop the distractions. Listen with your eyes. Learn from them. Ask questions, how does that make you feel? I mean, what was it like? Learn from them. And this plays across the board, not just with being anti-racist, but this plays across the board as you're trying to navigate, in your church. And then lament with them or grieve with them. This is what lamenting is, and so much of the Psalms are about. And then love on them. And this is the beauty about what we deal with in small groups is that you can get to that each of these listen, learn, lament, and love with them as you're trying to do it. And so sometimes, as we are, navigating out there, the best reparations, and that is repairing a wrong, is the answer. The best reparations are not money given. The best reparations is reconciliation, which is understanding. And in your groups and in your church leadership and in your community and in how you're engaging one-on-one with people, the best reparation that you can do is get reconciliation there. And sometimes it is in your church leadership as you're navigating in there. Sometimes it is when you're dealing with people of a different race and a different culture. I know out here in Orange County, There's different types of racism that are out there between, especially if you're from Persia and you're Persian in your culture and you're coming through. It's awkward sometimes to be in here, especially after 9/11 happened. But you've got to break down those barriers with what we're talking about. So trending topic right there is this, the things we learn to be anti-racist, you can apply to navigation in what you're trying to do in your small group ministry.
Great insight, Steve. And folks, that is your trending topic for this show. And we just want to thank you again for joining us for this very special episode of Group Talk. And a reminder to make sure and tune in next week for Carolyn's show, Here to There. It's going to be amazing.
And we're so excited just to see this weekly rhythm coming about to take you to that next level.
Make sure and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening. And if it's on iTunes and you love the show like we know you do,
please, 5 stars.
5-star rating. 5-star rating.
5 stars.
That helps other listeners to see the show pop up on Apple. Other than that, have a great week, everyone.
See you later.
Hey, Small Group Network family, Jason Banzoff here, Group Talk producer and Small Group Network creative arts director. We really hope that you enjoyed the first installment of Inside Saddleback with Steve Gladen. This new show lineup is going to be incredible. Now, before we go, have you heard about Align? Our new online training course is here. It's called Align, Learning Small Group Ministry Essentials. Our founder, Steve Gladen, is quoted as saying, "This is the course I wish I would have had 35 years ago when I started small group ministry." Align will help you learn the small group ministry essentials. It features 8 video sessions taught by Steve Gladen, a downloadable workbook, lesson discussion questions, an official small group network completion certificate, and a special gift to help you further your small group ministry. Learn more by watching the course introduction and enroll at smallgroupnetwork.com/align. And thank you for listening to Group Talk. We invite you to subscribe to our podcast through iTunes and get new episodes downloaded automatically. Also, if you enjoy this program, please take a few minutes to give us a positive rating on iTunes so that other small group point people can find us more easily. We encourage you to visit our website at smallgroupnetwork.com to access our library of free resources, connect to a huddle with other small group ministry leaders in your area, read our blog articles, or join us on our Facebook group. Don't forget to use the hashtag SGNet when engaging with your social media channels. Thank you for your support.